Well, so this is George DeWars again, reading from a book by an author of the same name. Getting it, 8 Facts That Fuel Recovery, if we face them. And this is chapter 7, which is called To Care or Not to Care. That is the question. Or is it? But I'll show you the illustration just because you may not have the book handy. That's the illustration for the chapter. And the quote underneath is from the AA Big Book, page 73. It says, quote, "As fast as he can, he pushes these memories far inside himself." If you want to know the rest of it, you got to read the Big Book, or at least check page 73. And just to refresh your memory in case you've forgotten, this book is available for a whopping $4.99 on Amazon Kindle. The paperback is only $6.99. So to care or not to care, that is the question, or is it? And this is in the context mostly of the what I call the expletive or cursing relapse, the one where we say F it or something that expresses that same feeling. So let's start. I don't remember his name. For some reason, I remember his trade, but no reason to say it here. He sat in my office in Thousand Oaks, California, over 30 years ago, baffled by his latest F-it relapse. His lament, "I love my daughter to death. I love my wife. I'm losing both of them every time I drink, and my business too. But I said F it when I picked up the first drink, and I kept saying F it the whole time I sat at the bar." So what's going on here? How can a human being see so clearly that he truly cares what he cares about, yet be so oblivious when deciding? Keep in mind, it's at the moment of deciding to do something to lose it all. What exactly is going on? What is going on here? Oh, I already read that. Let me offer you a word: perspective. Remembering what is actually important no matter what happens. Seeing the bigger picture and how things connect. Brain science calls it, quote, executive function, unquote, like the CEO of your own brain. Our mental boss apparently lives in the prefrontal cortex. A bullseye for a lobotomy needle and a target dominated by cravings from other parts of the brain, a target dominated by cravings and progressively damaged by use, some drugs more than others. The Big Book itself labels 2 kinds of relapse, as I have, but they use the words casual and deliberate. Casual relapse, deliberate relapse. Even while spelling out the difference between the two, the alcoholic authors emphasize the similarity. It is, quote, the inability to consider consequences, whether you're making a casual or deliberate decision to pick up the first drink, drug, whatever. Are they not also talking about perspective, keeping track of what is really important and how it will be affected by what we are deciding to do? Maybe one drink, drug, whatever, all by itself won't hurt anything. Maybe our resentment is justified and the situation sucks. We may in fact be victims. And maybe what really matters is what we do now and what will happen to what we really care about. No matter how much dirt or even blood drips from the hands of those who did us wrong. There are people who think all we need to do is learn to think better, pick up a mental trick or two and go on our way without a fix or a crutch. And, if I get the right page, and there are people who keep working at recovery. These people see that something takes over their clean and sober brains if they don't. That something not only fogs clarity and impairs judgment about what really matters, but it seems to rust away the willingness and the skill to get them back. Have I mentioned this group exercise, expletive deleted, that's the actual name of it, in quotes, By the way, you can find a description of it that was published in Counselor Magazine on my website, motivationformaintenance.com. It's listed as one of the articles. It was published about 2010. This is the one for people who have said F it and picked up the first drink, drug, whatever. We brainstorm what they actually meant at that moment. The most common translation of F it is, I don't care. Usually first, never left out. I just did this exercise again recently for the first time in a while at Peninsula College in Port Angeles, Washington. And they took a while, but they got there. I don't care did show up. It always does. Anyway, what? Is that even a verb? Something you actually do? Or is not caring a special kind of paint to brush over whatever it is to be quote-unquote effed? Check it out. Here's what I think I know, and you probably do too. If you care, you can't be hurt. No, I said that wrong. If you care, you can be hurt. Nothing like screwing up the main point of the chapter. If you care, you can be hurt. You've got something to lose. All it takes is something bad happening to whatever you care about. And you lose your sale, your promotion, your job itself. Your spouse gets hurt or sick or leaves. Your team misses the playoffs again or loses the final game or moves to Oklahoma. Yes, I live in Seattle now. And if you don't care, you can't be hurt. You stop being vulnerable. The problem is, if you are upset, you're already hurt, which means you cared about something too late. The cat's out of the bag. You can chase it around the room with your paintbrush dipped in, quote, not caring. Paint all you like. Didn't read that one right either. You can chase it around the room with your paintbrush dipped in, quote, not caring, paint all you like. The more he yowls and hisses, the more he proves you do care. If you have ever said F it and reached for your fix, you know what I'm talking about. You also know I don't care doesn't really work when you're already upset. Not without some catnip. Not without some catnip to shut that bugger up. The anti-caring juice, powder, whatever that works for you. The stuff that knows just where to go in your actual brain, the place your caring lives. What's the old country song? I'd rather have a bottle in front of me than a frontal lobotomy. When you work with the cursing decision to pick up a drink, a drug, or whatever for a while, when you work with it, I'm talking about as a counselor, you come to see there are two kinds of it and F it. The most obvious is the one that got the inner cat yowling, the person, place, or thing that upset you before you went all potty mouth. The other it seems to be whatever happens after the first drink, drug, or whatever, the consequences to come. Imagine this. You had been staying away from your fix for a while, but you got so upset you said F it and meant I don't care about what happens. Then you drank, you drugged, whatever. Now you're in front of a judge because someone got hurt. This judge has either read my book, oh, there's a little footnote number here, or knows about F it for some other reason. Let's see, the footnote says this is a subtle plug for my first book, White Knuckles and Wishful Thinking, Learning from the Moment of Relapse in Alcoholism and Other Addictions. How about that? Anyway, Judge has either read my first book or he knows about the F it decision for some other reason. He might even be in recovery, so he's done it himself. He asks what you were thinking as you picked up the first whatever. You fess up, and then he inquires, well, when you said F it, did you mean I don't care? Yes. And if you meant I don't care, were you not caring about the stuff that didn't go your way before you used or whatever? Or were you not caring about the pain for anyone you hurt after, including the one now in the hospital or the morgue and the one standing in front of me, you. A therapist or sponsor might ask a gentler question, one that might hurt even more. Quote, this is what this therapist might say. You seem to have been really convinced that you didn't care what would happen when you said F it and went back to your fix. But I see how much distress you are in now, possibly even as you're watching this. But I see how much distress you're in now that you may have lost everything. It's pretty obvious you do care now. What do you make of that? It's called an open-ended question, and it's designed to get you thinking about the stuff you least want to think about, to sniff your own mess. Therapists can be real shits, especially the good ones. Perhaps you said one won't hurt or some other wishful prediction as you went back to your fix. And then the judge or therapist might ask, did it hurt? I mean, you don't look too happy just now. AA calls it the loss of proportion of the ability to think straight. That should have been in quotes. Perspective, sanity, something upside down in the brain deciding to take the first drink, drug, whatever. Two attitudes often showing up together. I don't care what happened before I drink, drug, whatever, and I don't care what happens after I drink, and so on. And then there is the unwillingness to risk either of these attitudes coming back, along with the willingness to do something today to keep that risk as close to zero as possible. Real work based on realistic fear, the kind that gets us to roll up our sleeves for flu shots or to always carry a condom. And you will find this healthy fear in most people who continue to work at their recovery, the ones who have swallowed this slice of the willingness pie. What do they see and what do they say about it? True confession time. I didn't have a strong and direct 12-step quote about this slice, not one that completely captures the decision to stick around when things I care about don't go my way. I even admitted that during workshops for counselors. Then, after years of looking for just the right quote, it popped up when I was writing this. Well, I wrote the word letters here, but it's really post because this is a fake blog. The one AA quote, that's a device. The whole book is a blog. The one AA quote that uses the word care. Here it is. I wonder if you've already thought of it. So this AA quote uses the word care and tells us a lot about what recovery is and how it works. Quote, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. Step 3. Think about it a minute. Saying F it and picking up the first drink, drug, whatever, is a decision. Yes, it is impaired by craving and trauma and even brain damage. Sorry about that. But doesn't common sense stamp her foot and insist that different behavior can only follow a different decision? I mean, how can I say F it yet again and do something different than I've always done? To think you can make the same decision and have it result in different behavior, to think you can make a different decision in the same consciousness, seeing exactly the same reality you saw before, now that, dear reader, is clear insanity. My spouse isn't talking to me, or my boss isn't promoting me, or my best friend died, or my kid has cancer. What can I do? Run from the pain of life so cruelly ignoring my will, pretend I don't care when I obviously do, and reach for my favorite fix. Make the whole painful situation worse for everyone. Wife, boss, kid, or second best friend. or make a decision that helps me to stop banging my head, which is really my will, against a stone wall. You might recognize it by the name of reality, to relieve the headache that causes me, to consciously pass the buck of my caring about things I don't control, to give up the cherished illusion that I ever did control them. Pass it where? Does it really matter? As long as I let go of the insanity that assumes I can or should be in control of things. That things should go my way and I shouldn't have to suffer when they don't. As if I know what is best and reality is screwing up. Step 3 lays it out. The alternative to saying F it and deciding to reach for a fix. The healthier decision, often made many times a day, that changes attitude and reaction. That makes F it and the fix, whatever your fix is, as unthinkable as they are unnecessary. Wait a minute, George, you might say. Isn't this book about step 1? Yes, and the willingness that comes with it. You see, step 3, surrender, is a specific solution to the F it problem. The decision to turn it over is the antidote to the F it choice. But no one has the willingness to take step 3 without getting step 1. No one, all of it. Let me read that again. No one has the willingness to take step 3 without getting step 1. All of it. Like all 8 pieces of the pie. Or at least enough to hang out with fellow lunatics who babble that this dubious new decision works. When we, quote, come to believe their experience enough to get step 2, we gather enough hope and strength to try the new approach ourselves. Something better than saying F it and reaching for the catnip when the mouse we play with gets away or a new puppy moves in. For better or worse, the big book does not say. One of the 2 ways we, the founders of Alcoholics Anonymous, keep in mind, they did not say this. One of the 2 ways we relapse is to get upset, to say F it or the like, and reach for a drink or drug or whatever. I mean, obviously they didn't mention drugs or whatevers. But if we are not going to make this decision, we have to make a different one. We will have to deal with how frustrating life can be, how painful it is when things we care about do not work out. Our 12-step alternative is to make a different decision, to surrender, to decide that reality has a right to do what reality does, that you and I do not have the need, the right, or the ability to make it do anything else. And when you join us and choose our decision instead of F it, you will find enormous relief. Things usually work out better than you could have planned or imagined. And even when they don't, you will be amazed at how graciously and constructively you respond. It doesn't say that. Not in so many words, but there is nothing in that paragraph that it does not say somewhere. See for yourself, regardless of your favorite poison. The big book does say resentment is the number 1 offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. Try saying F it and picking up the first drink or drug or whatever without resentment. It doesn't happen. It does seem there are some other AA references to decision-making and caring, but they're not usually tied to preventing the deliberate or F it relapse. People in recovery say, I have to put sobriety first, and they will often explain the practical reason for it. Without recovery, I will lose everything else anyway. In other words, everything I care about. Putting recovery/survival first is also called a selfish program. Caring about me before I'm able to care about others. First things first is nothing if not an affirmation of perspective. Remember that word? And a reminder to use it. That would seem to include everything a person cares about or may be responsible for. There's another slogan that hints at a relationship between caring as love and the recovery program. Quote, let us love you until you can learn how to love yourself. I'm probably a little too fond of reminding codependents, including myself, that, quote, this is George quoting George, okay, George the author quoting George the therapist. Shameless. The golden rule doesn't nag us to love our neighbor instead of ourselves. It wants us to love our neighbor as ourselves. Jesus? Buddha? Mother Teresa? What makes them really special is how much better they love themselves than the rest of us do. The Buddhist monk who wrote Mindfulness in Plain English also plugs self-love. He bluntly declares that it is not an act of loving kindness to yourself to ignore your problems. Why? Because they gnaw at you as long as you are ignoring them. Because they only get worse while your head probes the sand or someplace darker. And because they can all be, quote, solved, processed to that place where you've either accepted them or fixed them. One person says F it and reaches for whatever over a broken shoelace or a broken heart. Another picks up the phone and calls a sponsor. Each may love self. The difference seems to be that renewable one-day commitment to reject the old tools or fixes, no matter what, to practice the new ones, no matter how clumsy they feel. A commitment born of willingness that just does not seem to happen without swallowing step one, all 8 slices. And those who cling to the old ways of loving self, you will hear yourself saying things like these. Quote, AA or NA or whatever 12-step program is it's a cult. Religion is the opiate of the people. I prefer real opiates. I can't deal with all that God talk. 12-step programs are just another addiction. I don't want or need to make AA or NA or whatever my whole life. The meetings are cliques. They're full of hypocrites. That is what you may say about, quote, them. What you say about yourself might be one of these. I'm not a joiner. I do better in individual counseling. Get a lot of those in my office. Might not make a living without them. I just need not to drink. That's all. I just need to stay busy. Work out more hours or get a hobby. Go to smart recovery or so on. If you are actually going to meetings, you may be saying you aren't ready to get a sponsor, work the steps, and so on. You may think a meeting or 2 a week is enough. Perhaps you're too prominent or too unique to pick just anyone as a sponsor. How do you know if you do get this reality? The self-deception of saying F it or I don't care when you really do, and reaching for your fix. In general, you will work at recovery. And when things go wrong, you will not be obsessed with fixing or resenting them. In fact, you'll be alarmed at your own loss of serenity and perspective, and you will be working to get them back. Therapists are calling that affect regulation now, or resilience. That's not in the book, I just thought of that. As it says in the AA version of the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, quote, it is a spiritual axiom that when we are in emotional disturbance, there is something wrong with us. And survival may depend on giving more priority to calming down than to winning the latest skirmish with life. Scott Peck says somewhere that fear is laziness. Maybe the Serenity Prayer should read, quote, this is a rewrite, a paraphrase, may I have the willingness to do the work of facing what bothers me, to do the work of accepting the part I don't control, to do the work of changing the part I may control, the wisdom to see that it really does work when I do that, and nothing works better. So that's it for chapter 7, and I'm going to sign off now. Hope that's of some use to you, or at least room for discussion. Thank you.